views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hey, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Today we're speaking with, on Zoom, all the way from British Columbia, Canada, is Mr. Rod Taylor of Christian Heritage Political Party.
Thank you. Good to be with you again, Patty. It's the National Party, the Christian Heritage Party of Canada goes across the country. We also have a provincial wing in British Columbia called Christian Heritage Party of BC. So both we're active in both those venues, and there's a lot to be concerned about in Canada today and in British Columbia.
Sounds like the book of Revelations is cooking, man.
It sounds like it. There are things that hint that we are approaching the end of the age, and we have to, well, you know what, the way I say it about Canada, and I think the same is true of the States, we have a lot of things going on we're not happy about. There's, drug overdoses, there's, sometimes crime rising in a lot of places. There's drought, fires, floods. And we as a people, the citizens of Canada and the citizens of the United States, have allowed the shedding of innocent human blood in our nation. So we worry about pollution and environmental things. Well, our land is right now polluted with innocent blood because we're allowing the killing of the unborn. And I think we can't expect God's blessing on our crops, our forests, our cities, as long as we are violating the basic principle of the protection of innocent human life.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And you have several topics to talk about right now. So let's start. Well, it started censoring. What happened?
Well, censorship, it's a problem around the world right now. And of course, censorship is always a mark of dictatorship or tyranny. When the political party in power, or a government in power with a king, an emperor, or even a majority parliament, decides to do things that people don't like, it's one thing that they do something that people don't like, but when they tell people you cannot talk about it among each other, don't bring your concerns to us, we don't want to hear them, that's really a sign of dictatorship. We saw it in Nazi Germany, of course, Stalin's Russia, Pol Pot's Cambodia, and Idi Amin. Wherever you have dictatorship, you have censorship, because those in charge don't want people pointing out their flaws
and to think on their own.
Yeah. So in Canada right now, we are being impacted by two federal bills that have been passed by the Trudeau Liberals. One is Bill C-11 and one is Bill C-18. And it's all part and parcel of this general effort to silence those who have concerns. So C-11 was, you see, they say it is to protect Canadian content. So they try to push Canadian content. And C-18, they wanted the big social media giants, Facebook and Twitter, to be paying for any news content. If I'm on Twitter, I have an account there and I want to post an article from the New York Times or even from the Calgary Herald. It doesn't matter which side of the border. If I put a news article on there, the federal government said, oh, well, Facebook and Twitter, they've got to pay these news companies for what they have produced. They said, otherwise it's not fair. So, what Facebook and Twitter have said, I don't think so. They said, we are a platform. People can post whatever they want.
Right.
And so if you're going to impose that on us, we just won't allow news on our channel. So I went to post my own article the other day. We do a weekly podcast as well called CHP Talks.
Right.
And I had a very interesting article and had it on a couple of the video channels, BitChute and Brighteon. And Facebook would not let me post it. And it referred to it as news. And then it said it violates their community guidelines for content, because we were talking about some of the sex education, the agenda, the LGBT agenda that is being
And that's hate, isn't it?
in our public high schools. Yes, they want to label us as hateful because we are concerned about what's being pushed on young children in the schools, how they're being groomed for sexual activity and so on. And so anyway, we're all facing censorship. And I just put an article out. Actually, it will come out tomorrow on our communique, and anyone can get on our communique list. Come to our website, chp.ca, and sign up for our free weekly communique. This one will be called Censorship: Who's to Blame, or Who's to Blame for Censorship. And it boils down to we are, because we self-censor. When we get the pressure, we get peer pressure, we get government pressure, we got threats of losing our jobs. We saw that during COVID. People had concerns about the vaccines, and and they were silenced. And even the big social media giants, held them back. So people self-censor. Rather than getting kicked off Facebook, they just don't say the things that they want to say. And that can be true on racism, critical race theory, abortion, euthanasia, all these important topics. So they're controlling the speech, but we have to continue to speak out, even when we are threatened, challenged, diminished, and we have to speak up, or we will lose our freedom of speech. Use it or lose it is what we say about free speech.
Sad, isn't it? That our own country is starting to do what the communists are doing.
Yeah.
To their own.
Doctors in Canada during the COVID crisis, and maybe that's not even completely over yet, doctors who had a different point of view than that which was being promoted by mainstream media and by the government, some of them lost their licenses. So that's paying a big price. Many of them lost hospital privileges. A lot of in British Columbia. Well, I know you're going to get to that. You want to talk about Bill 36. So I won't jump the gun here. I'll let
That's
you
all right.
lead. Well, it was on our list anyway. Bill 36 is a provincial legislation in BC, which we call the left coast or the west coast or left coast. But we have an NDP government, which is a socialist government tending toward communism. They won't admit that, but they, of course, were one of the harshest provinces in Canada. We have 10 provinces, 3 territories that make up our federal, jurisdictions, our regions. And British Columbia has one of the farthest left of those jurisdictions. And they imposed such restrictions on us. They fired a lot. They fired about 5,000 or more, could be as many as 10,000 nurses. They were either fired or squeezed out for refusing to reveal their vaccine status during the COVID crisis. And now they're not hiring them back. The other provinces have said, hey, we're short of nurses, we're short of doctors, we need medical professionals. Come on back, please. Just come on back and we'll fit you back in. In British Columbia, we have emergency rooms that are shut down because we don't have enough nurses to operate them. And the government is still insisting that they will not rehire all those wonderful nurses and doctors that have been fired. And so they're moving to Alberta, where they're moving across the line, and many citizens of British Columbia do not have a doctor now. So what Bill 36 is, and it's already passed the legislature of British Columbia, and it passed with very little opposition. There's the NDP government, and then what is supposed to be the official opposition used to be called the BC Liberals. Now they're called BC United. They stuck together on this Bill 36. Bill 36 would take, like we have the College of Physicians and Surgeons, the College of Nurses, College of Chiropractors, and it would put every one of those professional discipline colleges under the direct control of the provincial government. In other words, it wouldn't be doctors deciding what is good medical treatment. It would be government bureaucrats, not necessarily doctors or any training in the medical field, would be dictating to doctors, you must get this vaccine. And that's not just the COVID vaccine, anything that comes down the pike in the future. You must prescribe this, you must not prescribe that.
Who's to live and who's to die?
Yeah, it's actually, and in Canada, there have been people denied medical treatment because they refused to take an unproven, chemical into their body, which they called a vaccine, but which is not a vaccine. And people who refuse that have been denied treatment, life-saving treatment. Some have died already. Many others have died on waiting lists because, as I mentioned, there's so many doctors and nurses were excluded from the system that the waiting list got longer and longer. Canada's healthcare system is in a shambles right now, and British Columbia is probably one of the worst for that. So there's no repentance, there's no humility there. The government of BC, they're sticking to their guns, so to speak. And we are
learn the hard way.
I'm involved in a committee. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When their freedom has been taken away completely, they will learn the hard way, wishing they didn't do that.
Yeah. So I'm involved in a committee, Bill 36 committee. It's a part of a larger group called BC Rising, which is a part of a larger group called Freedom Rising, which has branches across the country. It's not a political party. It's just a group of people active in sharing the message. So we are still hoping to turn this Bill 36 to have it taken off the books. There's no common sense to it at all. It is imposing the will of a very egotistical government on the people of British Columbia, and there's no place for it.
You kind of wonder.
Across the country, Canada has a similar bill, Bill 47, which is that it's, I shouldn't say it's a similar bill, but it has some of the same elements to it. That was the budget implementation bill, which has also already passed. But there are sections in there that will lead to the banning of certain natural health products, natural supplements. So if you like herbs and natural products, the government wants all of those products to be tested at the same level as a pharmaceutical a vaccine or pharmaceutical compound that's put together in a laboratory. And some of these things have been used for centuries, and certainly by the First Nations people of Canada, and by many people in Canada rely on health products and go to the health food stores. The actions of this government, sometimes it is what would you call it, an unforeseen consequence, unintended consequence. They think that they're protecting, for instance, with the censorship, they think they're protecting Canadian news outlets with, this, what will amount to a ban on health supplements. They think that they're protecting people's health. What they're actually doing is taking away people's choice to protect their own health and to speak their own minds.
This whole world is going to pot.
Yes, it is. Literally.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many states where marijuana is legal in the United States, but it is legal in every province of Canada. I mean, it's legal across the board in Canada. And British Columbia, you may not believe this. It is hard to believe. British Columbia has decriminalized every drug, every street drug. While they're
Heroin.
trying to ban natural health supplements, they are legalizing heroin, cocaine, fentanyl.
Oh no, fentanyl.
I'm
That's
gonna
dangerous,
have
man.
Yeah, it's we have a opioid crisis in Canada. People dying by the thousands, and I'm going to have a guest on my show next week who's going to tell us a little bit about the extreme, the ridiculous nature and this extreme harm being done by governments that do not know what they're doing. We have tent cities. Do you have tent cities down there?
We had it with COVID.
Yeah, and there's growing in Canada, and seems like city councilors and mayors, provincial premiers, and prime minister don't know what to do about it. But they are implementing policies that make it. I guess they put a temptation in people's way to try to live without having a job, without paying any bills, maybe getting free drugs from the government while they're doing it, and they're destroying lives. And that's where I say again, we have to, as citizens, we have to take some responsibility for what's going on. We have elected the people who are making these rotten decisions, right? We have allowed the glitz and glamour of political campaigns and the empty promises of some of these politicians who are in power to overtake us, right? And people have been persuaded. I know there's people who voted for Trudeau in 2015 because he had nice hair and because of his family name. But that's not really the kind of credentials that we need in a prime minister or a premier or a mayor. We need people who care about other people and who are willing to make sacrifices, not live off the fat of it.
Sacrifice us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Can we help our people? How can you guys?
Well, that's excellent. Because we don't want to just talk doom and gloom. Sometimes we have to identify some problems before we can deal with them. So, I mean, it's easy to say, as we're not the government. We are a political party who seeks to elect members to Parliament, members to the legislatures in British Columbia, and we have alternatives. The Word of God says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So when people are running a country that don't even acknowledge God, according to my Bible, they have zero wisdom. So no wonder they're making goofy decisions. I think we've discussed before the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, which many people point to and, that's a violation of the Charter, this and that. The Charter, which is an essential part of our Constitution, we don't have the same kind of constitution as you have in the United States. Our Constitution is a mix of legislation, precedents, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's not a single document that can be referred to as the Constitution, but we rely a lot on British common law, the Bill of Rights that was passed in Canada some years ago. And we put it all together. The courts are supposed to make decisions. Our Charter of Rights and Freedoms begins with this preamble: whereas Canada is founded on principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, and then everything in the Charter follows on that. And our good friend Brian Peckford, who's the last living signer of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which was passed into law in 1982, he says that when courts ignore the supremacy of God, they are violating the basic principles of the Charter, and they're making decisions that are in contradiction to the intent of the founders. And he was one of the framers of the Constitution, and yet the courts don't really want to hear from him about that. It's the last living signer of the Charter, and the courts are ignoring his advice on this matter. It's shameful.
By ignoring God, they ignore the law of the Lord himself. So no wonder we're going downhill.
Exactly. So one of the things, of course, this is simple for me to say as the leader of a political party, but one thing people can do if they want to improve the country is to join our party, the Christian Heritage Party of Canada, or in British Columbia, you can join also the provincial wing, the Christian Heritage Party of BC, and visit our website. One of the things we're doing is educating people now. So the vast majority of Canadians need to be educated, and I'm not blaming it on them. The media has been complicit in keeping the masses ignorant of some of the things going on. So I don't blame people, but we offer this information. Once people have information, they can take action. So I'm involved in a few different organizations, or I'm a member or supporter. Canadian Taxpayers Federation is one of them. National pro-life groups that are educating people about the issues of life, and of course, there's a great organization now that we are a part of and support called Action for Canada. Tanya Gaw, she has formed a great organization, and they're doing a lot of the same work, educating the public about these issues. And then, of course, when it comes to voting, people have to vote for principles, not for the glitz and glamour of the big political parties that get, the conservatives and the liberals each get, after an election, they get about $20 million or more of taxpayer money. We don't get a penny of taxpayer money. So by people joining our party, they can help us raise awareness. We have to do the same kind of printing and publishing, radio and TV, but we can't. We don't have the reach that the big parties have, because we don't get the free coverage provided by state-sponsored, like the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
It's their purchases, right?
Over $1 billion a year from the federal government, and they tell people what they want them to think, not what.
We, the people, like down here, what happened to that up in Canada?
Yeah, we also are concerned, certainly, and express ourselves frequently about MAID, medical assistance in dying, which is at the other end of the life spectrum. Yes. We have a growing problem in Canada. Over 10,000 people a year being killed by lethal injection. And of course, you have that in some states. California, I think you have the problem there.
Yeah, it's starting to get that way here.
Yeah, we have it across the country.
Yeah, I think people who destroy their own people in their own countries are traitors.
Yeah,
I think they are. Whether I get my hands slapped or not, this is how I feel. They're killing their own. They have.
By the way, while we're just in between topics here, I want to make a plug for a book. It's not my book, and it's a letter to the American Church by Eric Metaxas. I'm just reading it now. You may have seen it already. Eric Metaxas, a tremendous patriot and a person. He draws a lot of parallels, and it's for any of your Canadian listeners. This book is just as important for the Canadian church as for the American church, because he draws attention to the correlation between the actions of churches and pastors, spiritual leaders during Nazi Germany, during the rise of Hitler, to what's going on in the United States and in Canada today. Yeah, it's churches need, and pastoral care people, spiritual leaders need to step up and talk to their people, very clearly, in spite of the pressure from the government not to do so, about life, about gender issues, about critical race theory, about overspending of government, all the things that are going on that are really a humanistic solution to problems. And of course, humanistic solutions don't work. We need God's wisdom. In the midst of this crisis, and it is a crisis, during the Black Plague, there were Christians who went out and risked their lives to minister to those who were dying, right? And some of them, of course, died as a result. We have problems on our streets. We need to be not just politically, but in a social way. We need to be engaged in helping our fellow citizens, those who have fallen on hard times, those who are addicted to drugs, those who are been, brought into a life of, sexual, whether it's prostitution or other sexual slavery. We Christians need to offer political solutions, but we also need to be on the front lines, helping people deal with their problems, offering, the tender heart of love, I guess, for those who have made bad decisions. We want them to make better decisions. We want to offer those better decisions, but you know what? We can't help them by pretending that the problem doesn't exist. We can't help drug addicts by legalizing drugs and providing drugs. We don't help prostitutes by making it easier for the Johns to do their work, or so we need to be clear in our and the child grooming that's going on in the public schools. It's terrible. Planned Parenthood and others that are pushing and grooming these children to engage in sex at younger and younger ages. They are destroying lives, and then now they're pushing them to have transition therapy, whether it's they call it sexual medical assistance or whatever, but it's not. When they mutilate the bodies of young children, either chemically or surgically, they are condemning them to a life of
confusion,
sadness, and sometimes suicide.
Well, this is the end of our half hour. Wow, we talked a lot, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm sorry I got going there, and I just I didn't give you enough chance to ask all the questions you had. But
we like to have you back on. So whenever we can, we're wondering if we can have you as our guest again on Zoom sometime in the future.
Love to come back on your program. I appreciate what you're doing, Patty, and your cat is taking part in this video.
You think Angus is trying to tell us something?
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not worried about black cats crossing my path, though, because I'm not superstitious. I believe God created them for a purpose, and sometimes they have their own way of getting our attention. So this one is getting yours. So I'll just say as a final to your folks there, I don't know if we're out of time yet, but chp.ca is our website. We invite folks to visit us there, and happy to discuss things that people have on their minds.
We'll see you next week, people. Thank you for tuning in. And with my little co-host here, Angus, we say thank you, sir, for being on my show.
Thanks.
Taylor, God bless you now. We love you, man. We love our country, Canada, and I miss it. So we'll see.
It's not over till it's over. We have to act like there's still something we can do about it, and we're trying our best to do that. So God bless you.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, and for the rest of